Welcome to the All the Stuff podcast, where we jam about money, clutter, and food, and the real stuff under this stuff. Join me, Lisa Carpenter, your resident food coach, along with my co-hosts, money coach Jen Turrell and clutter coach Lisa Sharp, as we help you release what's weighing you down and heal your relationship with food, money, and clutter from the inside out.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to All the Stuff. I am Lisa Sharp, your clutter expert, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Jen Turrell, who is our money expert, and Lisa Carpenter, who is our nutritional ninja. Oh. And today we want to keep talking about mental health because, honestly, I think this is something that, all of us struggle with ups and downs and hardships and all that kind of stuff in life. But for some reason, we're supposed to kind of all pretend like we have our shit together, and then there's really nothing going on. And this is like personally, it's something that I talk with my clients about a lot. My clients I have a lot of clients that have ADD, ADHD. I have a lot of clients that deal with depression. And we get sort of like a chicken and an egg sort of thing, right? Like, so people's houses become totally overwhelming. But, and is the reason that they're so overwhelmed and starting to get depressed because there's so much stuff and they just kind of start checking out of their lives because there's too much going on? Or are they depressed and then their houses sort of fall apart because they're having a really difficult time making decisions, staying focused, following a schedule, all that sort of stuff. So it's something that we talk about, like when I'm doing one-on-one work all the time. And over the weekend, I posted something on my personal Facebook page about how, what a life-changing thing it was for me last spring to get on antidepressants. And then recently I started taking medication for ADD. And for me, like there is still some internal stigma about those things, even though I totally know better. Both my parents are psychologists. My background is in social work. We have a fair amount of mental illness in my family. So it's not like, we haven't dealt with this in a million different ways in my personal life. But there was something about actually saying that on Facebook, and I had a lot of people message me privately, and they were sort of like, "Oh, you're brave to say that. Oh, I can't believe you said that." And I was sort of like, yeah, I don't really care. Basically because I don't have a lot to lose. I work for myself. My husband's in a job where it doesn't, it's like not going to really affect him politically if people think that his wife is crazy. So it's like, and with all of this mental health background, I think, I'm just a lot more, open about it because I think it's just a really real struggle. And I think part of the struggle is trying to pretend that there's no struggle, which is just stupid. So, I understand that there are valid reasons for us not to talk about it, but I aim to knock some of those reasons down because I think it really keeps us in this really awful feedback loop where we're just, we're so ashamed of having shame. We're so, overwhelmed because we're overwhelmed and we can't talk about it. So we're just isolating and only talking to one or two people when really the best disinfectant is sunlight. So we just need to bring some of the stuff out and talk about it and be honest about it. And all of a sudden some of that pain, that dark layer of stuff that we have can just sort of dissipate. It doesn't necessarily make it go away, but just knowing that somebody else is struggling in the same way that we are is immeasurably helpful. So what do you guys have to say about this?
Well, it's interesting because I was just at a conference. So, in our last episode, I talked about how I've been struggling with my moods. This past Saturday, I went to what was called the Real Talk Summit. And it was bookended, and this is so funny. It was bookended by Danielle Laporte and Gary Vaynerchuk. Both awesome speakers, both radically kind of different messages, but a lot of similarities. But what was amazing about the summit was it was started by a man by the name of Connor Beaton, who lives here locally in Vancouver. I know his ex-girlfriend really, really well. She was my first partner in B school. She's amazing, Kelsey Grant. She teaches radical self-love. Anyways, totally off topic, but this was to bring together entrepreneurs to get real and to go deep and to talk about the stuff that we face as entrepreneurs. And what I loved about this conference was they brought up panels of people to talk about what it's been like for them to grow their businesses. And there was a man on stage from, and I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. The company is Sage, S-A-J-E. He does essential oils. But in essence, he was like, 20 years I struggled and suffered in my business. And it's only been over the past 5 that I've, seen the success. And this was kind of the story that kept coming was, and even Gary Vaynerchuk talked about, we have to do the things. He's like, but there's going to be major adversity. And he was talking specifically to the millennials in the room. He's like, you guys haven't even faced adversity yet in terms of in the marketplace, right? Like it's been la la land. So he was talking about how we're going to go through a lot of highs and lows as entrepreneurs. That's part of the ride. And Connor kind of brought it full circle in his talk because one of the reasons he started Real Talk Summit and Man Talks was because so many men don't have a place to go where they can actually talk, right? We've started sisterhood circles and all that kind of stuff, but men don't have a place where they're coming together and talking. So he started this Man Talks where men could come in and talk about what was really going on for them. Now there's just as many women in the room, which is kind of awesome too. And part of me is like, God, can't men just have their own thing as well and women just stay out of the room? Anyways, that's a whole other topic. But what he was saying is that I can't remember what he said the statistic was for on average people suffering with depression. But if you are an entrepreneur, 30% of us suffer from depression. Mm-hmm. And many of us suffer in silence. We don't talk about it because we've got so much shame attached to things that are going on behind the scenes of our business, which is one of the reasons with this podcast that I show up and I share so openly about the stuff that is really challenging for me. Like growing my business has not been easy and it still continues to feel a little bit like I'm pushing a boulder up a hill on many days. We have to start talking about this stuff because most entrepreneurs are ADHD. Mm-hmm. Most creatives are. It's just mm-hmm. the way we're wired. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't make it right or wrong. Meds, no meds. Again, personal choice, personal preference. You decide what's best for you. But we have to start having the conversation and removing the stigma that there's something wrong with us or that we shouldn't be able to share this. And I was lying in bed the other night actually thinking about, because this has always been such an important part of as my business has grown, and Jen knows from the podcast interview that I did with her about my launch that was like a disaster, and even this launch wasn't like super awesome, although, it was really great on many levels. It's really, really important to me that I share that stuff, and I think there's so many of us that need to share that stuff that don't have an outlet. Mm-hmm. To share their story, or they're afraid to share their story. So there's something kind of brewing for me around that because it is so important for me to give back and have these conversations and open the door for people to have these conversations. It's such a huge part of what I do in my coaching practice with the entrepreneurs that I work with. Like this is why I'm working with A-type driven entrepreneurs. Like that's a whole other side of my business that has nothing to do with nutrition because most of them have never had a space before where they're actually allowed to talk about that stuff mm-hmm. as opposed to just putting their head down and driving through it and pretending like everything's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. It's not always going to be okay. You have to learn how to manage and feel what's going on for you, and you have to talk about it. Otherwise, like exactly what Lisa said, it keeps you locked in this shame spiral. I'm the only one. So sitting in that room on Saturday as I'm in this kind of season of, it's like a winter season in my business. There's stuff going on, but it doesn't look like anything's happening. I'm really just pausing and bringing it back in and saying, what do I want? What do I need? Where am I going? There's a lot of I don't know. I'm marinating right now in I don't know, and it's really uncomfortable. And it was so refreshing to see people on stage saying, it's okay to have those periods where you're uninspired, where you're unmotivated, because it will come back in if you stop trying to force it. And you have to really love what you do because building a business, creating better health for yourself, you have to be tenacious about it. You have to be adaptable. You have to be willing to move through adversity. And one of the foundational pieces for all entrepreneurs, and I think this is true for everybody, you have to take care of your health. You have to. You have to move. You have to eat well. These are not negotiable things. They are mandatory for you being able to show up as your best self. So you don't have to do it perfectly. But to keep thinking that you can skip over this stuff, drive more, work harder, ignore how you're feeling, push everything down, pull all-nighters.
Right.
You're not going to get very far. So I think I just went on like 5 different tangents there, but.
Well, and the thing with entrepreneurship, there's this really common, idea of hustling. We're supposed to hustle. We're supposed to be grinding it out. Nothing is easy. And it's like,
I feel like that's Gary Vee's motto.
So
isn't that Gary Vee's motto, the hustle?
You know what was interesting though is he genuinely, he is very pro, like you have to do the stuff. Like you're going to have to do the stuff. Like you can't just own your way to success.
You cannot.
But he very much does say, like, this is my way. But if it doesn't feel right for you, find your way. Right. But you have to show up and do. So, but with with breathing, you can't inhale without an exhale. In business and in life, you can't move forward without having rest. Mm-hmm. There has to be both. It looks different for everybody. And that's why I love that, they had Danielle Laporte and him bookending it, because she had a very different energy about, when you're not feeling motivated, take a vacation. Because trust me, the universe will show up with inspiration, and you'll be wishing you took that downtime and took care of yourself better.
Mm-hmm. So we should put links to both of their websites down below, because people who are not, like, for us, we know who these people are because we're in the entrepreneurial, especially online entrepreneurial world, but a lot of people don't. And I think that their work, especially Danielle Laporte's work, has a lot to offer a lot of people who have nothing to do with business. Mm-hmm. This is like stuff about who you are as a person, how you want to show up in the world. She's written, 4 books now.
Yeah, she's got another one coming out.
Yeah, so like the fire starter sessions. If you have an Audible account and you want a book recommendation, I would recommend that one. She has this amazing voice.
Very, very sensual. She's a very sensual voice. Too. Yeah. I don't think I read past that. I read the fire starter session and the desire map, but I don't think I've read.
Yeah,
since.
those are the two that I've
check
read.
Out what else she's
but
done.
But I think those are really good books, really for all of us. It really doesn't have anything to do with business. So,
and even her,
just throwing that out there.
She lost her company.
Yeah,
she lost her company, but she had to continue to pay for it for 5 years. She came through a lot of adversity as well, and there was a lot of emotional up, downs, and sideways, right? Like, there is no successful entrepreneur out there that has not suffered, and most of them have suffered in silence, and we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it. So whether you're not or not, you got to talk about it.
Well, and I also think that online entrepreneurship has opened up avenues for people who struggle to have traditional employment. Mm-hmm. So people who are, social anxiety disorders, people who have autism. I mean, I'm kind of keyed into the whole autism thing because of my kids, but there are people who've been able to get jobs, testing mobile phone apps, testing things with repetitive tasks that have to pay distinct attention to minute details and changes, and people who couldn't have held down traditional jobs in old-fashioned offices because they didn't have the sort of soft skills that required, but can work now online because they can choose their own hours and choose their own space and not be in the office politics and all those sorts of things. So I kind of, as you guys were talking, I was sitting here thinking about just like within my family we have, it's a history of autism for sure, as well as some depression, some schizophrenia. We have epilepsy, a number of different things that have affected different members of my family. Yeah. In ways that have sometimes made traditional employment difficult. And I couldn't help thinking, even like I had an uncle who was fascinated with toy trains and had amazing toy train collections, and probably would have been diagnosed autistic if that had existed when he was young. Mm-hmm. And he did really struggle to have some sort of fulfilling career. And online, he might have been like the toy train expert guy. He might have had a YouTube channel. He might have, repaired specialty toy trains for people.
Totally.
So, now there are avenues open to people who may not be struggling because of entrepreneurship, but may have had mental health issues before, but now can be entrepreneurs and can have some sort of fulfilling career that supports them and is exciting and makes them feel productive. But they still are dealing with mental health as well. So I think it kind of comes at entrepreneurship from both sides. Like, you don't have the supports that you used to have in traditional employment, in that you're not being told what to do, which lots of people love, but also it's hard. Like, if you make the wrong choice, it's all down to you. Yeah. Like, if you fail at something, you can't be like, oh, well, at least I got my paycheck. It's all you. It's your business, and you don't have HR support if somebody is mean to you or discriminates against you in some way. You can't complain to anybody else. The whole sort of employment system that people used to think of and rely on is so different now. I mean, just even your finances, your taxes, your retirement accounts, there's no one doing any of that for you if you're an entrepreneur. So it makes you wear so many more hats. And I think one of the hardest things that I talk to people about is, and that affects your income so much, is women who have never had to sell before trying to sell. I see so much anxiety and difficulty. And I mean, I think that can, if you've not done it and you finally do it and it's not a success, that can spin you down. That can really take you down this depression. Like, I thought everyone likes my posts. People listen to me. People do that, but they won't buy. And you can feel like it's a personal rejection of you, especially if you're selling your services. And I feel like online now, because there's so many options to buy so many things, often what people are choosing to buy based on is who they feel most connected to, who they like, who they get that Me Too factor from, who they feel has walked in their shoes before. So it is much more personal than a traditional paycheck job. So I feel like that element of like really be personally invested in your brand and your business makes it hard to have that emotional separation that could protect you from, in other jobs if something failed. You could blame it on anyone else in the team. You could blame it on the economy. You could blame it on whatever. When it's just you, it's hard to blame it on anything else.
One of the things that I've tried really hard to do, and I'm continuing to try and do more and more of this, is who you hear on the podcast, who you meet in person, same person. Although I am quite introverted, right? So I'm still the girl kind of on the fringe of these live events as opposed to being in the middle, which I think most people expect that I'm going to be in the middle. What I see time and time again, and this is kind of really what throws me off, is we have to stop comparing our behind the scenes with somebody else's highlight reel. And I've met a lot of women. When I meet them in person, I'm like, you are not the same as what I see out there. And it breaks my heart because the person that I meet is that authentic person who is struggling. A lot of them are struggling, right? Because a lot of people will open up to me. It's like my superpower, my magic power. People will like let me really see them. And I appreciate that. And they're so terrified to let people actually see the mess because they think it's going to tank their business, or people won't buy from them, or people won't like them, or whatever. And to me, that's what connects me with somebody. Like, I want to see the real stuff. I don't want to see all the pretty fluffy all the time. So it's not that I want us all to be like, marinating in sadness and all that kind of stuff all the time, but give me a range.
Right. We're not all just this one thing.
Thank you.
We're not just all happy and shiny and Pinterest worthy and have the perfect marriage and the business is raking it in, and kids that are, that look adorable and, like, oh, I'm just going to, have my glass of wine at the end of the day. They're driving me crazy. Like, no, I mean, come on, let's get real here.
Yeah.
Let's get real. And honestly, like especially when I work with people in person, often, well, this is true when I work with people online too. I don't know why I said that. Usually when they first meet me, they're like the snot crying, the like full on, oh my God, I feel like such a total failure. I can't even believe I'm showing another human being this. This is so awful. And if you look at their online presence, you would never know. And they work so fucking hard to maintain that everything is fine. There are no problems. My daughter's in rehab. my son is going cuckoo, my father-in-law is doing this, my ex is, it is just a shitstorm behind the scenes. Yeah. But because we have this social media and it's amped up this whole keeping up with the Joneses to the nth degree. It's like you're not even allowed to show your roots. It's like ridiculous, right? I don't have any roots. It's all great. But you know what I'm saying? It's like it's just so amped up, and that's so much pressure. Yeah. And so this is true for business. This is true in your personal life. And think about the kids that are growing up in this pressure cooker of it's supposed to, everybody's supposed to have their stuff together all the time. Yeah. That is not tenable. It is not tenable. So we started this conversation talking about mental health. We're going to end it here because I think that all of this is tied together. And if we don't start showing ourselves in a really honest and authentic way, I am not advocating walking out and, showing your emotions like the creepy guy at the park. Okay. I'm talking about with people that you trust and that, that you feel like they really get you in a really safe way, but starting to tiptoe toward that, tiptoe toward showing up in a way that is uncomfortable, because we're all working really hard to be comfortable, but that comfort it's not real. That's not real. It's just what we're used to. Yeah. So we need to sort of start stepping out a little bit, because that's where the real connection is. That's where we really feel engaged with other human beings, and we feel so much more worthy, I think, because it's not a veneer. It's no longer a veneer. It's actually what's happening. And when you see what's actually happening, we can connect in such a deep and beautiful way.
I agree. There's this, the word discernment comes up, and even Danielle Laporte talked about this, you don't have to share all your stuff with everybody. Be discerning about who you share it with.
Absolutely.
Because not everybody gets to see all the mess. So I try and talk about mine openly, but there's a period, right now, there's a bunch of stuff going on for me, and I will talk about it, but not necessarily when I'm right in it, except for the people that are close in my circle, because they can hold that space for me to help me navigate this, because I don't even really know how I'm feeling about a lot of the stuff. So just have those people talk about it, and you don't have to slather it all over social media, but don't make assumptions that everybody else is rocking and rolling, because I can tell you I've met multiple 6-figure earners falling apart behind the scenes.
Oh, totally.
Right? And they're no different than the moms at home with the 3 kids falling apart behind the scenes, but not talking to anybody about it. We don't need to suffer in silence. There's no shame in struggle, because we all have it. All of us.
And I sometimes think that the most important 2 words in the English language are me too. When something comes up and someone says, oh my God, me too, you have this instant moment, regardless of what it is, just a shared experience of some kind. I think those are the connecting moments in life. So I think we ready to tie a bow on that one?
Yeah, let's tie a bow on that one. So thank you so much for joining us today. I think this has been a really good episode. And I think, it's something that we should continue to talk about, and, come over into our Facebook group and give us a shout out. Let us know what's going on. I think that the first step, Lisa's always saying this in her EAT program, is just staying in the room. And it's true, just showing up in the online room, the real room, whatever it is, but, actually showing up for yourself by being honest.
Yeah. Raise your hand.
Raise your hand.
If you're listening on iTunes, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We love reviews. They help other people find this podcast, and people are loving it. So keep sharing, please.
And if you're watching on on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, you listen on iTunes, watch on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear what you think.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, come over to our Facebook group. Thanks, everyone. Great conversation. Take care. Bye.
Bye.